Hello, Welsh Forest Focus. A big week in the relegation battle took a fresh twist last night as Everton were thrashed 6-0 by Chelsea ahead of facing Nottingham Forest on Sunday. We'll touch on the impact of Everton's defeat briefly before tackling your submitted questions in our latest Q&A in the company of Reds fan Pete Blackburn. Pete, how you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Nice and buoyed after last night, so that's ideal.
Yes, absolutely. And retaining a place from yesterday is Emily Anderson. Morning, Emily, you well?
Good morning. Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me back so soon after.
No problem. Thank you for joining me and bailing me out as ever. Kick us off, Emily, just on that Everton game. I don't think there's any way you can spin it. I know people say wounded animal and all that stuff, but if you're offered a scenario where the goal difference is wiped out, they get absolutely trounced. We have to take that, don't we? It feels like only a positive.
Yeah, we couldn't really ask for more from last night, could we? They picked up a couple of injuries in their defence. They had no Calvert-Lewin, but we're not sure what's up with him. They were terrible at defending last night. Jordan Pickford had a howler, England's number one. He was lobbed by Palmer. Palmer scored the perfect hat-trick. They didn't seem to have any ideas. And even coming into this game, Everton had a terrible run of form. They can't seem to pick up any points. They don't score many goals. We discussed that on the podcast yesterday. Although they score most of their goals from set pieces, they don't actually score many goals. They will be a wounded animal, and I'm sure Sean Dyche will have extremely strong words for them over the next few days to get them ready to take on us at Goodison. But I don't think we could have asked for a better result last night in terms of how we prepare for this game. Just a couple of notes, though. They still did well at set pieces against Chelsea. Obviously, Beto should have scored early on when it was 0-0 and missed an absolute sitter that really anyone should have scored. And they're all massive, and we don't have a massive team. So that's a slight worry. But I think, as we sort of talked about yesterday, we've just got to go in gung-ho and just go for it and know that we should be able to get something out of them. We should be able to.
Yeah, that was the big takeaway for me, Pete. Like, I know they got hammered, but they did put, I was saying before we started recording, they put up 1.4 XG, and that was almost entirely based on set pieces and that Beto chance. It just said to me, like, I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet against them. So surely the way to go at them, the way to approach it is to get at them, and really the crowd must be ready to turn on them, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, I'd have thought so. That's definitely the biggest thing for me. I mean, I'm not sure you can see us keeping a clean sheet against anyone, really, or certainly being particularly confident about that at this point. So I think the blueprint for Forest is obvious because all of our strengths lie in that direction. And I think we saw a potential another step towards that with Dominguez coming off the bench at the weekend. So I'd probably be looking to do that. And as you say, I think the key thing is that Everton crowd has, for quite a number of years now, been quick to turn. I think if you can get at them and make an impact early doors, I think it could become pretty nasty and pretty hostile there. I mean, a 6-0 loss is something that's pretty hard to get over. I don't think it would take an awful lot for them to get on their backs. So I think that's what I'll be looking to do, and I think it gives us an opportunity. I'm the same as you. All that sort of wounded animal stuff, it's all irrelevant, really. They've just taken an absolute battering, and they have to be fragile. So it's an opportunity for us, I think.
Yeah, I remember when obviously we got hammered at Fulham and we went to Wolves the next game and dug in and ground out a draw. But we didn't win the game, so I don't think you can spin it as anything. I'm sure Everton will battle and make it difficult for us, but it does certainly favour us. The other thing, just quickly on the game, Emily, that was interesting, they're very immobile, Everton at the back. 2 right-backs went off, so it's probably going to be a centre-back at right-back in Ben Godfrey or Ashley Young, which, Callum Hudson-Odoi, I really fancy him there. And also, like, Palmer's ridiculous. It was insane how good he was. But he picked up some really interesting pockets of space. And if we have that with Gibbs White and Rayner, there's an opportunity to exploit that. I mean, it feels like a Gibbs White game to me.
It really does. And I think it was his first goal, actually. He just walked through the Everton defence like they weren't even there. They just sort of looked on and watched as he went through them. So for our attacking four, it really is a great game. I don't think he will be fit, but wouldn't it be such a great game for Elanga to be part of? And just mentioning about when we got hammered 5-0, remember that was right towards the end of Steve Cooper's tenure, and he made wholesale changes for the Wolves game. Everton don't have that luxury. They've still got that 11 barring those injuries that they have to go with on Sunday. So I don't see any comparison in that at all. And I just think we've just got to go for it.
Yeah, certainly. So obviously, yeah, summarising, not an easy game at all, but it does feel like another opportunity to at least go and get something. And as well, we play after Luton. It wasn't a question, but someone said the next 4 games we play after Luton, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on Luton's results. But it could present further opportunities for us, certainly. Right, before we get into the questions, we'll give a plug for the Trent Navigation a little earlier in the show, just to break it up nicely. People have seen on social media the other day that Rick Parfitt Jr. is playing straight after the Chelsea game. Talking of Chelsea, is billed as an end-of-season party. I certainly hope it is, and Rocking All Over the World is relevant after the game between Forest and Chelsea at the final home game. Here is a little taste of what you can expect at the Trent Navigation after that match. Entries free, by the way, as well. That's the other big thing to say. So here's what you can look forward to. So there you go. Saturday, the 11th of May at the Trent Navigation. Entries free, as I say. So it should be a good one, especially if it's a repeat of Arsenal a year ago, and that's the game that sees us safe. That would be pretty amazing. Right, loads of questions were submitted, which I'm very grateful for. Too many to get through, but we'll do our best with as many as we can. A few themes around certain individuals, transfers, the manager, stuff like that. So we'll kick off with one from Forest Era on Sangare. Discussing with Pete a little bit last week, and there's a second question last Pete on Sangare, but I'll throw this one to Emily. Do you think he'll stay or go? I think if we got a pre-season out of him, we could make a better judgment, but I would imagine he might want out already, hence why he's nowhere near the starting 11. I don't know I buy if he wants out already or not, Emily. Maybe he does, I don't know, but thoughts on Sangare and where he is in the pecking order right now?
I've talked about him a lot on here, and I've got pelters from some Forest fans for saying that he hasn't lived up to expectations. And I think I stand by that. He hasn't lived up to expectations. He obviously came with that huge price tag, which meant there were lots of expectations on him. There's clearly a player in there. We know from his time at PSV, but for whatever reason, he's not settling in at Forest at the moment. It's not quite working here. It's not gelling. And for me, when he's on the pitch, his body language tells me that he's not comfortable in this situation at the moment. That doesn't mean that won't come in time, and a great point that maybe if he did get a full pre-season with us and really got to know the players, he might settle in. I mean, my only concern is if we don't continue to press on with him and get a player out of him here, we're not going to make any money out of him. We're going to end up making a loss. It's a bit of a sorry situation for him at the moment, but let's not write him off yet, because some players do take a long time to settle in. I just worry that he's being left behind. And in terms of the pecking order at the moment, Dominguez and Danilo come way ahead of him in terms of the starting lineup. So yeah, he's a bench option at best at the moment.
A slightly different spin on it, Pete, from Jiminy Bob. Would people be open to the idea of a Danilo and Sangare partnership? Last game they started together was Newcastle when we won 3-1. Must be worth a go, surely. It's probably the last part that makes me question if it is worth a go because of where we are in the season. But they did do very well together in that Newcastle game, and Danilo would match up with him well on paper. What do you think about that?
I suppose in a sense it's the same question as the first one, because as things stand, Danilo is first name on the team sheet in central midfield, isn't he? I wasn't too convinced that he could nail that role given his sort of skill set, and I worried that perhaps he was a bit too risky there. But he's absolutely made it his own. He's doing a great job, brings a lot to the team, and his strengths, you would think, would pair quite nicely with what we expect from Sangare. So in theory, I think my short answer would be yes, but probably not now. I don't think that now is really the time of the season that we can afford to be taking too many risks. And I think that I may be being too conservative here, but I think the way I would be managing the situation is looking at the players' flaws and picking people who I felt I could sort of rely on at this point. I mean, going back to the first question to an extent, I'm not writing Sangare off whatsoever. I mean, it's a complicated situation because I think that first question had an awful lot of elements to it. Whether he stays or goes is not just down to whether we want him to go or not, whether we want him to be here or not. There are massive financial implications because he was such a big signing and he's so early into his contract. Getting rid of him is not going to be easy if we want to get rid of him. For a start, he's not done his reputation any good during this period of time. He's been injured for a fair bit of it, and when he's played, he's been pretty hit and miss. But the question also asks about whether he wants out already, and I think it's a risky business to be making those sorts of judgments about players when we just don't know. Where I am with Sangare is trying to be understanding about it, because he's a footballer who's come into a difficult situation. I think you have to accept that even just coming from a different league is not easy to start with. And most of us never move country for our jobs, but I'm sure those who do can tell you that moving cultures and different expectations are difficult things. And when you add in start having family or friends and all that sort of stuff, it's not ideal. But Forest also is this is not an easy place to come. This is a football club that has been in constant flux for many years now, and that's only been exacerbated by our time in the Premier League with the sort of recruitment that we've seen and all that sort of stuff. And add into that the issues off the pitch with PSR, blah blah blah. It's not an easy place to be turning up and expecting to sort of settle in well. So for me, Sangare is very much a live option for next season. That is with no insight whatsoever into his sort of state of mind or relationships at Forest. And I guess that's also a hugely important thing, because we don't know who's going to be managing Forest next season. We don't know what league Forest are going to be in. There are so many questions to be answered. But in theory, yes, Sangare and Danilo could be a powerful, potent partnership. I mean, there is so much more to come from Sangare. I'm not the only one who thought he was going to be a brilliant signing for us. I think he's appeared in 15 games, I think, for us, less than 1,000 minutes. And when we signed him, if you looked at his sort of previous form, he's a player who contributes so much. He can do so many different things. I made a couple of little notes on him. So season before we signed him, he contributed 5 goals. You think of him as a holding player, but he can do lots of sides of the game. See, that season he was also in the top 10 through ball providers in the division 3 times in his career, which I think is six seasons of playing, really. He's been in the top 10 players for providing passes into the final third in the division he's been playing in. That's Liga and Eredivisie. So they're decent leagues. And he's also often in the top 5 players for tackles won, twice in the top 10 for successful take-ons. So there's so much to this guy's game, and that's why we were excited about it, I think. We thought he could be that player who'd be transformative, because he could be a destroyer, but also progress the ball. So I think it's really early to be throwing all that stuff away. And I hope that a pre-season can change things for him. And going back to the original question, there's definitely a potential partnership there. There are 2 skill sets that make sense.
Yeah, I just think it's a question of timing. Like right now, with the season on the line, it's not one for me. But with a pre-season, and like Pete says, on balance, they've got the skill set to be a really good pairing. As has, Danilo and Dominguez, Sangare and Dominguez. I do think Ryan Yates should be 4th in the pecking order when all things are equal. But right now, where we are, Ryan Yates is a little bit higher in the pecking order, and Sangare's number 4. But things can definitely change. We've seen that. I've said this repeatedly. We've seen that with players, at Forest in time just recently. So yeah, Sangare is one to watch. I think it's very premature to completely write him off. Talking midfield, Emily, one from Tony Bagley here. A lot of talk regarding moving Murillo into midfield. What do you think? I think he's been our best defender by a long way. People are really, I asked this question because it comes up in every one we do about Murillo in midfield. What's your view on it?
Not at the moment, certainly, because he's still learning his trade as a centre-back. He's a joy to watch. He's learning every game. We all know that. And we know that he's probably going to eventually go for massive money. But at the moment, he's still got errors in his game as a centre-back. So let's get him fine-tuned in that position before we start worrying about moving him further up the field. He's such a huge talent, and he's got a great attitude. And if you watch him playing, he loves his football. He's a total joy to watch. And he's one of these players that could eventually probably play wherever he likes. I jokingly said on Saturday, why don't we stick him on set pieces? Because he clearly knows how to ping a ball and hit the back of the net. Well, not hit the back of the net, but it's certainly go in that direction. But for now, I think let's keep him where he is. Make sure that he can stick to his position as a centre back. Watch him develop, hopefully with us for at least another season. And then he'll probably go off with very big money to a big club. I've seen there's paper talk this morning actually about some European clubs sniffing around him already in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that develops.
Yeah, Real Madrid and Barcelona were linked yesterday, which says, how high his ceiling is and how much potential he is. For me, I really don't like it for a couple of reasons.
No.
He's young, he's learning his trade, as Emily says. And also, he's good on the ball, but he actually gives it away a lot, and he puts the ball at risk way too much. There was a pass early in the second half on Saturday where his right foot, he's trying to ping it out on his weaker foot, and he gifts the ball to Wolves, and he does turn it over in bad areas and try too much. And if you put him in midfield and he does that, then we're in big bother. So for me, it's not a goer at the moment. I just think it's just people are saying it because he's so talented, but he needs to learn as a centre half for me for much longer. And if we don't play him at centre half, then we've got to find another centre half pairing for the 15th time this season. Continuing that theme, Pete, and feel free to chime in on Murillo in midfield. Question from Steve Cook here. Assuming we stay up, the Brennan fee goes into our accounts that helps with PSR. And if we can sell Worrell, Might and Dennis, etc., clear out the fringe players basically, is now the time to review Murillo and Gibbs White's contract and insert a buyout clause, La Liga style. This would help us build and develop an exciting young squad to climb the table. What do you think about that? And feel free to chime in on Murillo, the midfielder, as well.
I must admit, I was really hoping you weren't going to ask me this question because
sorry,
the vagaries of PSR and accounts are a bit of a mess, and I don't think even the experts are really sure where Forest are going to land. I'm sure they've got a good idea in the club, or you'd certainly hope that they do, but it's a bit of guesswork at this point. I will answer that. Just going on to Murillo, I sort of wonder what the point would be. I don't really understand what we're addressing. If we do that, all we do is leave another question to be answered at centre half when we've already got one, and you take away that bit of time on the ball that Murillo has, where that's currently his biggest opportunity to hurt teams, I think. So I think it'd be a bit mad. I think the only sort of positive I can really see from it is that he'd be a bit further up the pitch and he might score a couple of those from inside his own half, which would be fun. But yeah, no, it's not really for me. I think the question's probably right to say he's been our best defender this season. Although, having said that, when Bolly's played, he's been fairly flawless generally. I think it's just that he's not been available too often, I guess. But really, I think it's a case of trying to get two of them working together in these last few games of the season rather than moving another one out of there. On the finances question, I think this is a really difficult question, and there are so many elements to it. My feeling from reading the accounts and from reading the commission report is that even with the Brennan fee in the accounts, we've got some work to do just to get level. That may be able to be achieved by selling Mangala. I think that's pretty unclear as to whether that's already been accounted for when they were talking about their projected end of season situation. So I think they said in the commission, Forest had reported that they were projecting 12 to 17 million pound losses by the end of June this year. Unclear whether those are PSR figures or whether they're just general accounts. So it's really hard to know, but I think the mood music seems to be that Forest are going to have work to do in terms of shifting players, and that the Brennan fee is already accounted for, and we still aren't going to be in a particularly sort of lavish situation cash-wise. Also, I think overall, the way I see it is that Forest have got a squad that is far too big, far too many players who don't have any impact on matchday squads, far too many players who will never play for the club again, some of them who've never played for the club. And actually shifting some of those players that are mentioned by Steve in the question, that just needs to be done regardless of replacing them. Those players will have to go. Their wages need to be off the books, and there needs to be a slimming down of the number of players that Forest contract. So as I see it, any work that's going to be done with the squad in terms of recruitment is probably going to have to be done through the sale of one of those players that are talked about. So he mentions Murillo and Gibbs White. I think that's where we're going to be, and it's really important as well that we note where the sort of direction of travel in terms of finance, and that's that the new rules are likely to be based on percentage of turnover, 85-90% of turnover, that we can spend on wages and amortization of transfer fees, and we are miles over that already. So there's huge amounts of work to do to get us down into those figures that will come. I think that's the season after next. If we're going to be a long-term project in the Premier League, we're going to have to work within those rules because we can't be getting points deductions every year. So no, I'm not sure it's realistic to be keeping those players, to be honest. And also, the other point of that is that it might be a nice idea to extend Murillo and Gibbs White's contracts, but there's two parties involved in that situation, and I'm not sure that either of those are going to be particularly incentivised to do that at this point. Murillo's obviously got a new agent, and I think the inference is that he's going to be looking to move in the near future. He's made such a big impact already, and I think everyone can see his talent is enormous. I don't think it's remotely hyperbolic to say that he could be one of the most sought after defenders in world football for the skill set that he's got at the very top level. I think his weaknesses will be totally negated by playing in a team where they dominate the ball. And he could have a massive impact on the very best teams. So I don't think we're going to be able to hang on to him. And the buyout clause, perhaps if we offered him significant improvement in wages and a buyout clause that both parties felt was reasonable, it might be an option. But I'm not really sure what it's achieving, because I don't think he's a long-term prospect at Nottingham Forest. Realistically, I can't see him being here for more than another season at the very most. And I'll be sort of surprised if he's here next year, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered all the parts of that question, because it's an absolutely massive question. I think Forest have got an awful lot of work to do financially, and I think there's going to have to be a change of theme from recruiting to offloading first before we can do anything.
Do you think, Emily, sort of from what James says here about, it's easier to replace a centre-back, which I agree with and I've said repeatedly. Do you think retaining Gibbs-White for another year is kind of priority number one, really? Because I just feel like he's so integral to everything we do, much more than Murillo, who's more of a, the bonus ball than the winning lottery number in a sense.
Certainly is, isn't he? And I think we there's no secret around the fact that we do build our team around Morgan Gibbs-White, and for the amount we paid for Morgan Gibbs-White as well, looking at purely numbers, it makes more sense to sell a Murillo, who we got for far less money, and we can make some more profit from him. And like you say, he's more easily replaceable. I don't want to get rid of Murillo, don't get me wrong, I think he's fantastic, but for me, he'd be the one to go if we had to get rid of one of our pieces of family silver.
A question from Danscape is quite an interesting one, Emily, that I'll throw to you as well, sort of on the theme of selling players. Slightly. Would Mighton or Dennis have offered more than Origi as a squad option this season? They'd have saved us a lot on wages and potentially built their transfer value to be able to sell on this summer. What do you think about that?
It's like Sophie's choice, isn't it? Do you know what? I never thought Dennis did what he potentially could have done for us. He didn't really do an awful lot for us at Forest. He didn't really help last season. So it would be probably a hard no from him. He's got a similar skill set, I think, to Origi, and not the player I would have wanted to keep. Alex Mighton, I suppose, slightly different kettle of fish in that he came up through our academy. And I watched him play in the academy, always liked him. He's a good Nottingham lad, academy player, but he's not quite at our level, unfortunately, is he? He's struggled in the Championship. He's not doing much in League One. So, God, I just don't think we should have signed Origi. I think that's the simple answer to the question. We know we've had some duddish signings, and I think so far Origi's not proved his place in our team.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you say, the ship sailed on Mighton, sadly, at this level, because he just hasn't had enough first-team football, and his loans haven't worked out, which is, I think, really held him back. So he probably needs a good year of League One football and then see where he gets longer term. And I agree about Dennis. Like, he's not really lit it up anywhere. I mean, I haven't actually followed how he's done at Watford. I'll have a check after this, but I've not seen his name showing up on, banging in goals or anything like that. I think the answer was probably sign someone better than Origi, who put there's a little bit of hindsight. There's a little bit of hindsight in the question and the answers, but it's more the case that Origi hasn't really done anything near what we hoped he would. Clock's ticking, so I'll move on to the next one for you, Pete. James Bogue, what's the one signing, assuming we stay up, you would make as a priority next season? For me, I definitely think we need a quality, experienced centre-back above all else.
I think James Bogue has answered that question perfectly. I'm not sure I can add a great deal more, to be honest. I think Murillo probably goes, and in his place, we need to sign a dominant, aggressive centre-back. Experiences like it would be nice, but personally, I'm more interested in the sort of set of attributes, I guess, and ideally someone who's a leader as well. I mean, that'd be really nice, because I think we lack a little bit of that. Someone who can just help the team manage games in difficult situations, calm things down when they need to, tell someone like Ryan Yates to just go down and win a foul in a difficult situation, tell Callum Hudson-Odoi to smash it up the pitch, all of those sorts of things. We just need a little bit of that now, I think. But alongside it, a centre back with a proper, I suppose, traditional profile in a sense. I mean, most Premier League centre backs need to be sort of relatively mobile, I guess, now, and be able to play with the ball a bit and all that sort of stuff. But I think we need someone who is aggressive, physical, assertive, strong in the air, and strong in the tackle. You see the Cunha goal up against Omar Bamadeli. I think Omar Bamadeli's got away a little bit with some of the critique of that one, to be honest, because he just needs to be big and strong there, and he's not. And we haven't got someone who can do that unless Bolly's fit and available. And Bolly's issues aren't going to be any better next season, you wouldn't have thought, if he is even here. So for me, that's a sort of fairly obvious choice. So I think James is bang on.
Yeah, I think we just need a younger version of Bolly that's going to be around for 35 games out of 38, personally, for me. Yeah. Any different area of the pitch for you, Emily, or would it be the same?
Yeah, I'm being greedy. I mean, an obvious choice for me, but whether he's ready for the Premier League, is Sammy Smodics from Blackburn Rovers. He's single-handedly keeping them in the Championship this season. He's likely to get the Golden Boot. He's an attacking midfielder, and if we lose Morgan Gibbs-White, in slot Sammy Smodics. And he clearly wants to prove himself at this level. But we're unlikely to get him. The other couple, I thought, I was trying to go through the potential teams that could go down. Ross Barkley would be a great addition to our midfield. I know we've had so many goalkeepers, and we might talk about this more in a minute, but I'm still not set on Sells. I'm still not 100%. And I think if a Kelleher or a Ramsdale was available, you'd probably punt for them. But yeah, I mean, if we beggars can't be choosers, and with PSR we have to be really careful. So I guess if Murillo goes, we do need a solid, massive 6'4" type centre back that's just going to take players out.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I was just looking at, you're right about the Championship. Like Adam Wharton at Palace has gone in and really smashed it. Talking of players from Blackburn, I think we're just out there. Do you want to come in there, Pete, or are you just clearing your throat?
No, I was going to say, I was just sort of noisily agreeing with you. I've got a cold, so there's probably a bit of a sniffly agreeing. No, I think you're bang on. Adam Wharton would have been a great signing. There's loads of those. I mean, Alex Scott would have made my life as well. There's lots of talent down there in the Championship. I mean, I think there are some knocking about that might be a little bit less ambitious profit and sustainability wise as well. I mean, I think I'm right in saying Callum O'Hare's out of contract at the end of the season. He's the sort who could come in and play understudy to Gibbs-White or come off the left. I think we're probably going to have to start looking at players who can play a couple of positions in those understudy roles. Perhaps someone who can play up front as well as out wide, or play as a 10 and out wide. Those sorts of positions, because we are going to be struggling for bringing in sort of proven, guaranteed quality as an understudy for every single role, or improving every role. So we'll probably have to be a bit creative.
Just on Dennis as well, I looked up his stats. He's got 4 goals and no assists in 15 games for Watford, so he hasn't done too much. I know people in the comments were saying that he did have moments for us, like that Newcastle game, and when he started games, he did all right. He puts up better numbers than Origi, but still probably not for me, unless Nuno thinks he can get a tune out of him. But he obviously didn't, because he would have bought him back in January. So yeah, I think he moves on.
I think the difference between those two is a sort of sense that Origi adds something in terms of being a presence in the team. That's clearly what Nuno feels about him. Whether we agree or not is a different matter. But if he obviously feels that he can trust him to come on and do a job, whether that is trying to change a game, whether that's trying to hold on to a game, it's not really played out in reality. And I think occasionally he's been a bit unlucky. I mean, he's played a few lovely balls in behind for the likes of Elanga and Taiwo, who haven't taken the chances, and perhaps his narrative might have been different if those had been taken and he'd had a bit of a confidence boost and all that sort of stuff. But clearly he looks a bit anxious in front of goal and in those positions now. But I think he brings a physical presence and probably a bit of trust from Nuno. And I mean, Emmanuel Dennis has never engendered those sorts of feelings while he's been at Forest. Clearly a player of some sort of mercurial talent, but not someone that you'd necessarily feel like you could trust.
Next question, Emily, is from John Salt. If Forest is stuck with the team that beat Chelsea 1-0 under Steve Cooper rather than sign another 8 players on deadline day, would we be high up the table? I'll just read out the team from that game to put it into some context.
Yeah.
Turner in goal, Bolly, Worrell, McKenna, back 3, Aurier, Mangala, Yates, Olaena, Danilo and Gibbs White in behind Awonyi, and subs obviously included Elanga, who came on at half-time to get the winner, Chris Wood, Nuno Tavares, Montiel, Niakhate, Felipe, and young Brandon Aguilera. What do you think about the question?
It's a really difficult question to answer, isn't it? Because essentially we don't know. And remember, players in that lineup are now injured, so we don't actually have them now anyway. Had we not made those signings, we wouldn't have got Callum Hudson-Odoi, we wouldn't have got Amabama Dele, we wouldn't have got Dominguez, Matt Sells. No, we that was kind of the back end of our championship winning team, wasn't it? If you look at the centre backs, Worrell and McKenna, I don't know about how you guys feel, but I think we've come a long way since then, and that was one single game that we managed to drag out a 1-0. So no, I think is my answer to that. I think we have made some duds. We know we've had some duds in those 8 that we signed in September, and then we signed a few more in January. But I actually think we've found some talent in those signings that we've made.
Yeah, I think my answer is no as well. I mean, Sells is better than Turner, and there's players we've signed that are better. What we don't have is some of the ingredients of that team that won at Chelsea, that absolutely put bodies on the line, blocked everything. I know Joe Worrell had bad games for us, but that was his best game. Yates was great in that game, and he's still around, obviously. And so are, Danilo, Gibbs White, Aina. I think that's about it, actually. So there have been changes, but I'd like to see some of the ingredients from that team that won at Stamford Bridge, especially at Goodison Park. I mean, if there's ever a time to front up and, scramble and battle for every single ball, then it's a bit of a mixture of the two. But I do feel like we've got better players now. It's
like you need the talent of what we've got now with the spirit from the Chelsea game, and we are crying out for a Joe Worrell type character, aren't we? On Sunday, that can get them motivated at Goodison. I just don't think that level of team would have been sustainable over a season.
Yeah. Worrell and McKenna as a 2 wouldn't work. Worrell and McKenna as a 3 was a kind of okay, but there's other ingredients. Yeah, I am repeating myself. I think we need a mixture of the two. Anything on that, Pete, before we move on?
Not so much. I think that team would probably be in a similar position to ours, but it would have been a very different story. It probably would have been more of a fighting story with probably less egregious mistakes, but an awful lot less fluid football and the positives on that side of things. I don't think that side is likely to stay in the Premier League comfortably. And I mean, also you have to look through it and think about the amount of players there who are going to be out at some point during that season through injury and what have you. And the squad suddenly looks pretty weak if you take some of those out. I think that the truth is that we lost something when we signed a lot of players and sacked Steve Cooper, but we've also gained some other things along the way. So it's a bit of a balance, but I don't think it would have been sort of particularly better than it has been. It would have been different, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of summing it up, certainly. A couple of questions to go before we finish. One from Derek, who I'm not saying he's not a fan of Matt Sells, but I see him in the comments saying that he's not as good as we all think he is. So Derek asks, do people really think Sells is a long-term answer, whether we stay up or not? 1 clean sheet in about 20 games. He's made some decent saves and he's better than what we've got. But personally, I don't think he's the person to move this team forward. And on that, Emily, we're linked with Kelleher at Liverpool yesterday. Again, one of the best number 2s out there. So long-term thoughts on Sells?
Well, we've had no consistency in our keepers, have we, since Brice Samba left when we got promoted to the Premier League. And I don't think we've ever come back from that, really. And it's like, you don't know what you've got till he's gone. I mean, we loved him when he was here, but God, wouldn't we love him back between the sticks now? And I think the fact that we've had no consistency with keepers is because they've not had a good run of matches. Not a single keeper we've had since we've gone up has had a decent run between the sticks. I think Sells needs more time to prove himself. I would be open to a more established keeper in the summer. I mentioned earlier the likes of Kelleher, as you just said, and Aaron Ramsdale, who can't get into the Arsenal side. But I think it's on the proviso that we need to offload one of at least Vlachodimos, Hennessy, Turner, because we're awash with keepers that haven't worked. And it's the one position I think that's been our Achilles heel. I think Matt Sells has done all right, actually. He's solid, and yeah, he hasn't kept many clean sheets, but it's not all him to blame. We've made some terrible defending choices in those games. So I'd give Sells a bit more time because I think they just need that consistency to learn who their defensive line is, get to know the team and everything. So I'd give Matt Sells a bit more time.
Yeah, maybe there's a bit of recency bias in the question, Pete, as well. He didn't have his best game on Saturday. And also, do we really have the resources to blow a relatively huge amount of money on another keeper when we've got so many? Unless we could get him on loan or something like that. In the case of Kelleher, what's your view?
My view is Sells is absolutely fine. We wouldn't be talking about him as a priority if we hadn't had so many issues with the other keepers to date. I think we're all a bit triggered by goalkeepers, and that's probably where a lot of this discussion comes from. I mean, this question would be absolutely fine in a vacuum. I'm sure we'd all like a sort of slightly younger keeper who was maybe a little bit more exciting. Kelleher would be lovely. But I mean, this isn't a vacuum. There's quite a lot of context here. I don't think we've got £30 million to be spending on a goalkeeper, and we've got one who hasn't let us down a great deal at all. In fact, he's come up trumps for us much more often than he has the opposite. It's not anywhere near the top of the list of priorities for me, and there are quite a few priorities, and it's going to be a difficult summer. As things stand, I think the priority in terms of the goalkeeping department is trying to get rid of, ideally, both Turner and Blackburn, if possible. And then you go from there, certainly at least one of them. And that's a big enough job without thinking about anything else. I just don't think this is a priority at all. I think actually Sells probably deserves a little bit more respect than he's probably getting from this sort of discourse. Actually, I think he's been generally pretty good for us. And like I say, I think we're just a bit triggered by the whole goalkeeping situation. And as soon as you get one of those moments like we had at the weekend, I think we're all like, oh no, have we got another one of those? But I think we should probably remember all the moments he's come up big for us already. And that one clean sheet thing that's easily said, but I don't think this is really his fault. I don't think we need to look very far into the Forest team to see where issues have been, and they generally haven't been that Sells related.
Yeah, I mean, like Dan says, does he stay too much on his line? Doesn't affect corners. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, one area where Turner actually wasn't too bad was coming for balls and being brave, but defend them better. It's a collective thing, isn't it? Win the first header, and we're not talking about this as much. So for me, Sells is perfectly viable for the next couple of years. I think he's come in and done exactly what we needed of him. Like we said when we signed him, if he's a steady 7 out of 10 every week, then I'm very happy with it. And I think he's generally been that. It was a slight, he didn't have a good game on Saturday. Although I need to see that second goal again. Someone mentioned me on Twitter saying it was headed right in front of him, and that's why he fluffed it. So I'll probably watch that one again. But yeah, I'm on board with Sells personally. Last question about people we're on board with or not. JJT Parry. If we stay up, is Nuno the man to take us forward? And if we go down, is he the man to bring us back up? We discussed this at the live show, which is out tomorrow. I've seen an edit of it, and it's come out very nicely. And got everyone's opinion on that. We haven't had your opinion, Emily or Pete. I asked the crowd, Emily, and said, is the jury still out? And literally almost every single hand went up. So a lot of fans are still to be convinced. What's your view on it?
I'm a true believer, whoever's in charge at Forest in giving managers time, switching it up every few months hasn't worked so far for us, has it? I think he needs a full season with us. He needs a pre-season with a settled squad. We need a settled manager. No matter what division we're in. I mean, I like some of what he's trying to do with Forest. Clearly, since he came in, he's got that attacking four that we love. But clearly, there are some frailties in his in-game management. If we do get relegated, would he stick with us? I don't know. I guess he probably would. He got Wolves out of the Championship and had a great time with them, didn't he? But I'm very much of the opinion, just give him time. Give him time. He's come in at an awful time with us. His mission is to keep us up. So let's hope that he can. Long term, I'm not sure, if I'm honest. But it's such a hard act to follow, isn't it? Steve Cooper did stuff for us that we will never forget. So he was always going to have to, he's just following one of our best managers we've had in many of our lifetimes.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat Steve-O in the comments mentions Will Still, and then there's Rob Edwards. There's always interesting names out there, Pete. Yeah. There's, Kieran McKenna, definitely. What's your view on it as we sit here right now with Nuno's long-term prospects?
Oh, I really don't know the answer to the question. I think the question you asked, I think, at the live show was something along the lines of, "Is the jury still out, or are you sure?" I'm not sure, and the jury is out for me. I sort of, I think it's worth being aware from my perspective that it was going to be difficult for me to bond with a new manager. Not to make things sort of too emotive or whatever, but the Steve Cooper thing was an experience that we haven't had for so many years. It meant so much to so many of us for lots of different reasons. It was just the most magical journey, and we also had a manager who was just very unusual in the way that he so obviously bought into the city and the community and all that sort of stuff, and made such a big deal out of it. And it was always going to be really hard for whoever followed that without a sort of massive run of wins just to sweep everything away. It looked like we were getting a little bit of that at the start of Nuno, but obviously it's sort of regressed to being a struggle. I think I think it would be fair to say that Nuno's had a pretty difficult hand. This is not an environment that I would be desperate to walk into as a manager. It's a difficult environment off the pitch. On the pitch, things are a struggle. On the positive side, he has definitely brought much more swagger to the football club. He immediately restored Gibbs White to that central role that we hadn't seen him in for an awful long time. I think if we remember before, we were all talking every game about where Gibbs White was going to play and how he was going to be squeezed in and all that sort of stuff. That's no longer an issue. It's sort of pretty obvious what the sort of blueprint is for the team. There are lots of positives like that. There's also a lot of negatives. Like he hasn't managed to turn around some of the big issues that faced the sort of footballing side. We're still weak in the places that we were weak before. And if anything, it seems like we may have lost a little bit of grit along the way as well. So I can see arguments on both sides, but I think the overriding one is probably that Forest haven't covered themselves in glory when it comes to managers in recent years and, in fact, decades. And I think it's probably time that we tried to be a slightly more stable operation than that. I think you have to accept that Nuno's situation here, if he kept Forest up, he'd have done that in difficult circumstances, in a sort of a club influx and with challenges from within and without. And I think you'd have to count that as a decent achievement. And on the way, he's done it with a little bit more swagger than we had before. So I think I'd be inclined to give him another go at it. But there's no point in doing that unless you're convinced. So unless the owners are going to give him another go of it and stick with him for a decent period of time, then there's no point doing it. But I wouldn't be sacking Nuno as things stand. I'm yet to be sort of totally sold on the whole thing, but I'm aware that there are reasons for that, and he's not someone that I think fans are instantly going to warm to because he's just not that sort of character. He doesn't seem to be desperately interested in creating a big bond with fans and that sort of thing, and that's absolutely fine. I've got no issue with that. So yeah, not really an answer to your question, is it? I think I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if he's the man to manage us if we stay up. I'm not sure. I'm pretty unconvinced that he's the man to be in the Championship if we get relegated. I think it'd probably be a time for a clean start. So yeah, jury's out for me, but I'd be inclined to be supportive and try and have a bit of stability and a bit of long-term thinking because we just haven't had that in the past, and I think that's undermined so much of what we've done as a football club.
Yeah, do you know if we do get relegated?
Yeah,
there is a manager free and willing that's known to bring players back, teams back up. Steve Cooper. We just get Steve Cooper.
No.
I'm only joking. No. I'm only joking.
We might need new owners for that.
Yeah, I'm only joking. So.
Good. I know there's people who would want Cooper to come back, but I just, I don't think that could ever happen as well as he did. What was I going to say? Yeah, I think if we stay up, then people's perceptions of Nuno will change. If we get a couple of wins, people will be more on board. And if we get a mega result, like this isn't going to happen, but if we were to beat Man City, then, which he has done as a manager, but I really don't think we will, then, I think people will be more on board for Nuno. I think, like Pete said, what he hasn't done is address the failings that were pre-existing around set pieces and stuff like that have really cost us this season. The football is better, and he's had a pretty rough hand. and he has the same sort of issues with Cooper that I have around game management of subs and stuff like that. There's been some games where it's been really strange decisions that have backfired, but I think he deserves a little bit of patience and see how he goes at the start of next season. And patience is a buzzword, because I don't think the owner is going to tolerate 17th again next season. So as much as we talk about Nuno as a long-term option, unless he takes Forest up the table next season, if we do stay up, then his goose is probably cooked anyway. So yeah, that's my take on it. Right. Any other business before we go, Emily Anderson?
No, not at all. No, nothing today. Thank you.
And before I throw to Pete, if you haven't already, do us a favour, hit like on the video, do subscribe to the channel, give us a good review on iTunes, 5 stars, it's great, and you can become a channel member. Pete, anything from you?
Yeah, just a quick thing on the live show last week, which obviously your recording is coming out tomorrow, I think you said. I suppose just to say what a pleasure it was to be there, to get a real feel for the community that you, Matt, and everyone involved in this podcast and everyone who watches and listens has created. I'm in my mid-30s now, and I suppose as you get older, you sort of throw yourself into less things because you know what you like. You've got your sort of group of friends, and you've got your hobbies and your activities and your week's planned and all that sort of stuff. But being involved in this and sort of throwing myself into something else has been a real joy, even if you can call it that when Forest are struggling, I guess. And I think the live show really sort of confirmed all of that stuff. It was so lovely to meet lots of really nice people from different backgrounds and different walks of life. So I guess just thank you to everyone who was there, everyone who said hello, everyone who was kind enough to say a few nice words about this brilliant thing, and onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards, yeah. That video's out tomorrow, and there will be another live show at the end of the season, and probably a second in the summer as well. So Pete's and one of my any other businesses much better than I would have done, as usual, with his eloquence. The other one, a Reds fan, Rob Johnston, messaged me asking if I could give a plug for his charity fundraising. He's running 6 marathons in 6 months in aid of breast cancer now, starting with the London Marathon. I'll drop the link in the chat now, and also the comments, the description for the video, sorry. So yeah, I see he's raised a couple of grand already. So that's great. He does say on his Twitter bio, the best left foot in the country, which I know Temps will be absolutely raging about and dispute that thoroughly. But do give Rob a few quid if you can spare it. Right, good to have everyone with us, 300 people throughout this, which is great. And we shall be back Thursday or Friday. We're looking properly ahead to Everton with our preview and then the opposition preview. So do check that out. And like I say, the live show will be out tomorrow. Right. Emily, thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed that. Cheers.
As did I. Pete Blackburn, thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Had a great time.
Good. As did I. Right. Have a good day, everyone. And we shall see you soon.